Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. This is your host, Andrew. And today, our guest is Christian Obrey of Kent, founder, starter of the Through the Turnstiles of Non-League Football website, now Instagram page. And we're going to talk also about the Parks to Pitches magazine that they've just come out with their first ever edition of. Christian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Andrew. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. So, I always like to start with this one question with all of our guests. What's your earliest memory of football?
Growing up, I was a Gillingham fan. My local team, it's always been my family's team. So it's my granddad's team, it's my dad's team. And the stand behind the goal, which we always used to stand in, is the Rainer Mendes, now seated. But back then, it was just slabs, tiered slabs. Um, and I was about six or seven when I first went. So I was quite small, obviously. And I always remember whenever I used to turn up, I used to feel like a little bit like a celebrity because people used to just part and make way for me right at the front. So I sort of just walked through. Everyone would look after me. My dad would be a few rows back, and there was just a real, I don't know, it was just like I knew I was there then. So it was quite a nice football feeling. And then, yeah, I mean, we've actually got that one of the slabs that were in the stand in my mum and dad's garden. So when they took the stand down and put seating in, they sold all of the slabs off. So whenever I go there and I look in the garden, it just reminds me of that sort of memories. It's quite cool.
Man, so that is amazing that you actually have like part of the stadium at your parents' garden. Always like that
Yeah.
memory. So cool. What are some of the kind of those feelings, the sights, sounds that you associate with that time?
We were quite good back then, so it was always quite loud. I always remember it being quite full, and I suppose when people nowadays they discuss about the standing and how it's all seating and stuff, my memories always go to that sort of period where you just whenever there was a goal, you just felt that the crowd around you like sort of celebrating as one. And I don't think ever since they've removed that, it's never been the same. I've had moments, where you just lose yourself in the crowd and you just fly down the
Mhm.
stairs and stuff, but that whole surge, and I understand that the surge is probably not the most safest thing in the world, um, but that feeling of all togetherness and celebrating as one unit, I think was just, yeah, it's incredible. You can't really replicate that anywhere else. So yeah, that's the takeaway, I think. And growing up through that, I think I appreciated it more as I was getting older, just how special it was.
Yeah, there's like nothing like that, right? I was in Argentina earlier this year, and some of their stadiums are like that still. And the one match I went to at River Plate at the El Monumental Stadium, it's like 85,000 people. And the two ends behind the goals are like that. It's standing room. So you literally have to just like, fortunately, I went with someone who had been there and was associated and things. So like, you literally just have to push your way through everybody until you find a spot that seems acceptable. And then, at some point you kind of feel like you're off your feet. Like so many people are squeezed in shoulder to shoulder. You're not even standing on the ground. And then, of course, with that rush, that stampede of the goal, you're a few rows from where you were like 10 seconds ago. It's an amazing feeling, and certainly different than what you mentioned with having certain seats. And yeah, we
Yeah,
understand the safety implications, but that feeling and stuff is just something you can't get maybe at a concert, for a
yeah.
moment at a really big part of a song, or if everybody's moving. But that's awesome. So tell us a little bit kind of how you got started. Obviously there's a big gap that we're not going to go deeply into every twist and turn of your life to this point, but tell us how you got started with the website of Through the Turnstiles of Non-League Football.
Yeah, so I mean, in my day-to-day job, I speak to a lot of companies and do a lot of joint up marketing campaigns and stuff. And one of those sort of projects that I had was working with some localized non-league teams in the areas that we sort of operate. And one of those teams was local to me, which was Chatham Town. And I got working with them. We've done loads of stuff, and we still do loads of stuff still. But as part of that sort of connection, I sort of was brought into the non-league scene and sort of shown exactly like the ins and outs of what it's all about. It sort of coincided with a time where, for the last few years before Gillingham were taken over by Brad Gallinson, it was not the nicest atmosphere at the stadium for Gills games. There was no real focus on match day. There was no real focus on the fans. It was all just left alone, really, and it didn't really feel like you were sort of valued as like a supporter. You felt like a customer essentially, um, and that just opened my eyes going into like the non-league scene. It was completely different. Everyone, like the general manager, you've got the chairman and the directors and the manager coming over and they're saying hello to you. The players are all approachable. It's just it really opened my eyes, and I was like, well, I might. I knew there was a few people that had turned away from league football and gone to the non-league sort of fan base. So I was like, I wonder, how many there are. And so I put together an article about, the rise of non-league football and sort of interviewed, I think it's 20 or 30 fans about their experience and why they've moved.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was incredible, like to hear some of their stories. And I put it into this huge little article, and it sort of just took off from there. And it was really well received, and it was quite eye opening actually to see the absolute outpouring of love and like the amount of stories that come off the back of even posting that. And it was actually suggested by a few of the people that you should do more of this and feature some of the clubs and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I should have a look at that. And it was like, because it was a passion of mine at that point anyway, it sort of
Mm-hmm.
just molded into that. So to date, I've done 20 club features on different non-league clubs around the UK, which includes everything. So you've got all the stadium information, the club shop information. There's interviews with the directors in there, so what their plans are for the future. Uh, Fans, so touching on why they're fans, what makes the club so special.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little insight from some of the people in and around the club about, the current players that are there, why, who's the best players at the club in their opinion, who are some of the legends. So it was really like forming a Bible essentially for
Mm.
someone that didn't know anything about this club.
Yeah.
They could go onto the article, and by the end of it, the objective is that they feel like they know the club inside and out. It's really been quite cathartic for me because it's help it. Not only is it nice to write these things and find out about the clubs, but to know that even in a small way that I'm helping increase their brand awareness and increasing potentially
100%.
more people going to their games. It makes a huge difference if an extra 20 people go on a match day. That's money that can help make them sustain and survive for another year. It makes me excited just to talk about it, to be honest, because it's such a cool place to be within, and to be a part of that is, it's pretty awesome.
Honestly, a lot of what you're saying reminds me kind of the because football journey and kind of what we're like going through as well, and between the podcast and the interview and connecting with people or the YouTube channel and things as well. It's same thing, starting as passion and just kind of see how it grows and what opportunities come from there. I just want to clarify for anybody listening, especially like the average like American, right, or a lot of people outside of the UK, the term non-league kind of is, it almost sounds like paradoxical. Like, what do you mean? It's like football, but it's not a league. So is it a tournament? Is it whatever it is? So could you just clarify, explain like we're five, what's non-league football?
I've said to everyone that asks me and speaks to me on like text and stuff, I said it's still a massive part of my learning curve is to understand exactly everything around it. I said I'm not going to preach that I'm an expert because I'm new to this scene. I just want to be sort of the vessel, but plenty of pyramids for anyone that wants to have a look. Go on Google, you can look up the non-league pyramids. It goes down all
Yeah.
the way to the bottom, and it's huge. It's insane to think the amount of football and the amount of leagues that the UK has. To look at that and you think, wow, there's literally a club every corner. It is incredible to think of how many football teams there are. I would say the one thing about non-league football is the perception of it. So the perception that a lot of people have is, oh, it's not in the football league, therefore it's amateur. Couldn't be further from the truth. And
Hmm.
it's quite an easy mistake to make because the whole wording of non-league makes it sound inferior. Um, there's a lot of clubs that are in non-league that are probably better run than some of the football league clubs. It's just that they've been in the league and have benefited from the money, and so they sort of just get by running it not
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, like I say, if there's anyone that's looking for like a visual representation of that, there's plenty up there. So have a little look. It's
Yeah,
quite
no,
cool.
I've learned so much just from the like if you go on Wikipedia even and look at like, association football in England or in the UK, and yeah, you can find all those pyramids and it goes down and down and down. So would non-league be considered not even national league, like below national league as well? Or is national league considered kind of that top tier of non-league?
I believe it's non-league is national league and below. I
Okay.
don't. Yeah, I don't want to. I'm 99% sure. So yeah, non-league and below is non-league, and then league football is League Two to Championship to Premiership.
Okay.
Sorry.
The sense I get from your writings and from the posts you've put up on Instagram and the way we've connected, when you say non-league, it has a certain feeling, value, some kind of ethos to it, right? So, and you were speaking to that of kind of how you've been taken into almost a community, whether it's in general people who are following non-league as a either like a supplement to like the Premier League club or the larger clubs they follow, or because they've been turned off in some way by whatever's happened, whether it's been a club takeover or just a change of ownership and leadership that has rub fans the wrong way, and they don't feel that connection. So how would you describe like what does non-league offer people, like because in the US, for example, if we said sure somebody goes every weekend to the sixth level of American football or basketball, we'd be like, what's the point? So what is the point?
What I've learned very quickly is it's very much how you'd expect football to be, I don't know, 50 years ago, where you could go to the match, you go through a physical turnstile, hence the name.
Yeah.
The you can go to the bar. The barman knows who you are because you've been there before by name, sort of thing. You can buy yourself a pint and you can go out and stand round the side of the pitch and enjoy a drink with your friends, and just enjoy honest football without any of the tech, any of the worries about VAR coming in. It's football at its rawest form, and aside from the football, it is very much for a lot of people I spoke to. It's their escape place. It's their safe zone.
Mhm.
So you don't normally get that with some league teams. They have like these fan zones and the breakout things, but they always feel as well intended as they are. They always feel a little bit marketed, contrived sort of attempts.
Yeah.
Non-league is just it's just authentic. You go there, be with friends, be with people that you've met through the football club, um, and there's always the dream that your team could be the team that break out. And I don't like to use them as an example because obviously they've got the huge backing, but that Wrexham sort of model. I suppose a better example would be the
Sure.
Dorking.
Who started, yeah, when they were purchased was non-league and now have moved up.
But I mean, there's plenty other examples. I mean, you've got hashtag obviously have come up from nothing essentially, but Spencer with his YouTube channel has sort of grown that team into now the Isthmian Premier, so they're only a few leagues off of league football essentially. And then you've got Dorking Wanderers, who another club that have been led by someone with huge charisma in Mark White.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, they suffered relegation last season, but still operating at the level they are is incredible. So there's always that hope, but I mean, essentially, it's a space for people to go enjoy football, not have to worry about anything else, and just shut off from the world for 90 minutes.
The no frills nature of it and kind of like the authenticity and the honesty of it, it just really connects with people. I think a lot about this, I think in general in the UK with football, because it was something that started from communities, right? And then that general popular support and love of the game then developed into bigger clubs. And then now fast forward generations and it is what it is. Whereas in the US, the average person doesn't necessarily realize this even in the country, but certainly from outside of, okay, there's no tradition or history of things of football, but we have had a lot of ethnic communities in various parts of the country that have been playing the game for over 100 years and have grown, but just at that top level hasn't really worked out until recently. We have the MLS. I like to think of it as like a top down approach. It's a corporate structure where, and you mentioned too earlier on, you felt like there was a time in Gillingham where you felt more like a customer and not a
Yeah,
supporter.
yeah,
And that's something I always think about. So we've had this like corporate structure come in with MLS, and like for example, my local club, Philadelphia Union, I feel like they do a good job of being in touch with the club, but or with the local community, but it's still such a different thing. Like We have some supporters groups that have come up organically from people's passion, but a lot of it has been like, this seems like something we should do, and we're going to put money behind it, and then it's kind of going to settle it. So, what do you think is the difference in that sense of feeling like the fan or just the supporter of the club, like being part of the community with some kind of input versus like just a customer, right? Or just like a pound sign or a dollar sign, as we would say.
It's not to say that, I mean, some, league teams are really good at making their fans feel like fans. I think as a broad sweep, the non-league scene as a whole, it's essentially because your money that you spend on that day, is essentially going to keep that club alive. And because of the importance of that club to the community, and it's an employer at the end of the day, although it's probably
Mhm.
run by volunteers. Essentially, it is a community hub. With the lack of physical actual community hubs around now, these non-league clubs are doing the job of those. So the sense of you're doing something and your money is actually making a difference to the club, and then when you go in there, you're recognised and you're treated in a way that you feel valued, rather than just next, next, next. It's hard to articulate. I think it's just a feeling. I think as soon as someone goes to a non-league game, they will know exactly the difference. I think if you went to one weekend, you went to a football league game, and then the next weekend you went to a non-league game, I think you would just know in your heart the difference. Um, and yeah, just speak to a few people there and just see why they've been involved with the club or why they go to the club. And the amount of stories and stuff that they will be able to tell you is just incredible. So yeah, it's not to say that EFL clubs can't do that,
Mhm.
but I feel like a lot of them lose their way and have lost their way if they've been in it from the start or have been in it a very long time. I feel like if there's not someone there steering the direction of making sure that the fans are first, then they can just often be lost. And then you're just relying on people being loyal to the club that they have always been loyal to.
Yeah, the aspect of feeling like the immediacy, kind of that closeness, is something that sticks out a lot when I talk to people. Like you said, that your contribution, you being there, really matters. Whereas in other times, in bigger club situations, it's like you're kind of just lost in the mix. But you mentioned, some of your initial writing, that initial article you wrote that kind of gained some support and birthed the website, and now obviously the magazine that you're doing now. Could you give us maybe like one or two snapshots or examples of like someone's story of how they went from a football league club to then non-league, and kind of found their home there?
Yeah, I mean, so one of them actually is someone I actually work with. So Danny, who I work with, he grew up as a Charlton fan. Um, so as a Charlton fan, at the time we've been in the Premier League, obviously
Yep.
not there now. They're struggling a little bit and has been for a few years. But I think 5 or 6 years ago, he went to a Chatham Town game actually, local to our area, similar, and he said, he couldn't believe the difference. He would go to like the valley and stuff, and he would just sit there, he'd sing the songs, and everything would be fine. He'd go home, and he'd be like, "Oh, I feel a bit deflated." He said as soon as he went there, he said everyone was introducing themselves. People were giving him stick and stuff from the moment he walked in, and they were giving
Mm.
him like banter straight away. And then like on the terraces, all of the songs were starting up. There was banging and stuff. He said it just felt completely different. He just fell in love with it, and he's been in love with it ever since. So he goes home and away. So he's a season ticket holder. He goes to all the away games. There's a guy called TJ, and he was running a five-a-side team. So just him and his mates doing five-a-side football,
Okay.
going to watch the football and stuff. And he was like, "Do you know what? I think we should give it a crack at non-league." And so out of his five-a-side team, which was just playing casually, he's now formed a actual non-league football team in the ladder. It'd be near the bottom of that pyramid, but he's on the pyramid. Um,
Mhm.
and because of the passion of football, and he's driven him into that non-league world. So they've won trophies already. They're pushing for promotion this year, and yeah, they're looking to climb that ladder. And within 5 years, I wouldn't put it past them. And it's those sort of stories when you think about, it, you think, God, what does it mean to you? Well, you've got someone that's been playing casually with his friends, and he's like, do you know what? I want to be involved in that, but I want to be really involved in it. Yeah, it's quite a cool thing to think. I was speaking to him, and I said, do you know, everyone, when you grow up, you always tell your friends, "I wish I could run a football club." I said, and
Yes.
you're essentially doing it. I said, so yeah, fair play to you. And he's self funding it all at the moment, but yeah, incredible. It's those stories, and
Awesome.
there's some that are bubbling away, which are coming on the website soon, which are also amazing stories
Yeah.
as well. I won't give
Cool.
them away,
So
but yeah,
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we've got to order the magazine, right? Parks and
exactly.
Pitches, and that's available on eBay. We're definitely going to link to that, and then obviously the stories on the website. But so yeah, tell us about the Parks to Pitches magazine that you guys have like literally just this week released, and you posted a photo of shipping out all the different copies because it is I guess before that like or be part of it, especially for this American or non-UK audience, share a little bit about the significance of the match day program and kind of everything that went into this project.
I mean, obviously the website's been going since February, so it's still relatively new, in all honesty. But I've always been a love. I'm very much a print guy, so I like newspapers, I like magazines, football programs. Every time you go into a ground, has to get a football program. I was thinking, well, you've got the website, we've got all of the content that are going on there. I really would like to bring a magazine, a printed magazine.
Yeah.
So I looked at the sort of the options that are out there, and there's very little. There used to be a few that were knocking around and kept going, but they're out of circulation now. So through the contacts that I'd sort of made from doing features on clubs and interviewing different people, such as groundhoppers and scouts and stuff, I sort of got a WhatsApp chat together, and I said, right, guys, I'm going to
Okay.
pick your brains here. I said, but I've got this idea. I said, I think there's a real opportunity and there's a market for it. I said, everyone, in non-league, we know they love printed programs. We know they love print, copy. I said, I think we could, fill a void and provide them with, a printed magazine in program style. So that the magazine is program size. Um, and so they went, yeah, I think you're onto something. So we put together, it's a 40-paged magazine. We've got a non-league scout that has done an article on what
Cool.
it's like to be a non-league scout and how you could get involved, some of the tools that he uses. Um, we've got a couple of ground hoppers that have visited different grounds. We've got a journalist that's covered two up and coming teams. Um, then we've got Tony, who is written. So Tony goes around with his two daughters, and it's girls go ground hopping. So they go
Okay.
around and they visit
Cool.
all the different non-league clubs, and he
Amazing.
documents it. Yeah. So he's done a bit on that and about how one of his daughters has sort of gained a role model through watching one of these teams play. I wanted
Hmm.
it to be insightful, behind the scenes,
Yeah.
stuff that people in the non-league scene would find really interesting, and stuff that maybe they would never actually know. It's quite hard because obviously a non-league is quite an open book, but there is a lot of things that go on that people maybe just aren't aware of. So since that initial conversation, been designing, redesigning, uh, taking a
So
trip,
cool, man.
taking a trip down to a muddy football pitch with my fiance with a camera to get the perfect front cover shot.
It's a great shot. There's a classic Adidas ball there too, man.
Yeah,
Just yeah.
yeah. So when we were discussing the front cover, she said to me, she was like, "I've got an old Adidas ball, and that is the ball that needs to be in it." I was like, when I saw it, I was like, "Perfect. That is what you want."
It gives it so much credibility, just that
Yeah.
ball. If you'd put the brand new Premier League ball in there, it would not have had the same impact at all.
No, definitely not. So yeah, it's been a few months since that conversation, and it went to print last week. Been on sale just over a day now, and yeah, like you alluded to earlier, the photo I took late last night, piled up, sold over 100 in the first 24 hours.
Brilliant.
So yes,
Awesome.
yeah, really really pleased with it, and yeah, a bit blown away. I was hoping the reaction would be positive, but you never know, and to
No.
see the reaction and the outpouring of support for it has been it's been mind blowing, to be honest. It's
So
incredible.
cool, man. Well, congratulations on that start and all that hard work. I think what I like about what you just explained, and I'll have to grab a copy myself, is that you're kind of like you're dealing with like a cast of characters within non-league, right? Like it's people who are occupying all these different places, like the scout in a more official role. Obviously, if we can't run a club, then we want to be the scout finding the next prospect and moving them on. It's such a common dream that the average, armchair football fan has. And then the
Yeah.
story with, the father and his daughters ground hopping going around is so cool too. And things that we wouldn't necessarily immediately think of when it comes to non-league. And so it really, again, brings out those values you're saying of that feeling of connection, of community, of like really being a part of people's lives, an important part, not just something that's, could come or go. And I think that's probably why everybody is having that initial response, and obviously the great work you guys are doing as well. Mention, I really like the logo. Tell us about kind of the obviously of and you've got the shirt on there. So if we've got the video, if anybody watching the video version, they can see that. But what was the other side there? Yeah, there you go. When you were thinking of names, what about it? You mentioned it earlier, like the specific turnstile, right? For everybody watching and or listening, like, it's obviously that part of where you stand in line and then you kind of click through there and you move through into the stadium. What about that kind of made you make such a big decision, like naming it and giving the title? What about the turnstile in particular was so meaningful for you?
So when I was doing research and stuff, and I was looking, and I visited a few different grounds and stuff, the one thing that is constant, and the one thing that is in my mind so iconic to especially non-league teams, is that turnstile. It's where, when you enter that, your day started essentially. But there's just everything about it, the look of it, the sound when you go through it, the old school metal scraping. Um, some of the things just don't need to change. Essentially, in my opinion, those things that are the turnstile and all of that iconic, in my opinion, things like that. It just had to be that. It just epitomised everything about non-league, and I just thought, if we're featuring non-league clubs, and if I'm writing about all of these different people within non-league, all of them are going through that turnstile. There's no
Hmm.
different, the players, the manager, everyone, they're all going through the turnstile, and so it really just hammered home that community feel as well. As soon as I thought of it and I put it down on paper and I looked at it, I was like, that's it. It just felt right. It just embodies everything that I was trying to get across. So yeah.
It's like, or I'm thinking of all the ones I've gone through, and you get the rusty one, so you're trying to push through, or the one that glitches and you kind of get stuck and then have to go. That's generally been my experience too. But it's again, just such a clear, vivid image of not only, everybody knows that feeling, but it is like the official start of that experience, really, of that like ritual, right? Like of
Yeah.
what we're looking for on on the match day, and everything kind of begins there, and it's also the entrance into that world, so it's a very apt and appropriate name for for stories about that. As I also coach youth football and things, so I'll talk to parents and families every once in a while. They say, oh yeah, we're going to England or the UK, and we want to see Arsenal or Liverpool or Man United or Chelsea, and now because of the popularity of the Wrexham series, like I've even got a couple kids who are like, yeah, we even made the trip up to Wrexham to go see it, which I think is great that people are kind of tapping into that story and the journey that a club can go on and a community can go on, because we don't have that promotion relegation system in the States. But let's say someone's got a week in England for one of their few holidays of the year. What would you say to someone who maybe doesn't have the same like context and understanding of what that means? Like, what would you say to try to convince them to just pop around the corner from their hotel or their Airbnb and try the field that's right there in the neighborhood, rather than having to go all over and to some of the bigger clubs?
Yeah, I'd probably just say, do you want to experience football in its rawest form, in its purest form, in probably the form that it started out in, and in my mind at least, should still be in? It's essentially stripped back. It's raw. You get proper tackles. You get um, debatable
Stuck in,
decisions.
yeah,
You
yeah.
get you get the decisions from the ref that you don't agree with, but there's no video that's going to come and save you. If you like a drink, you can have as many as you like around the side of the pitch. in non-league there is exceptional food options. So if you're a big food eater and you don't
The
want to be
spread,
charged,
right? The
oh
spread.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
if you don't want to be charged 20, £30 for a burger and chips, head to a non-league team. You can get amazing food
Is
for a
it on
quarter.
that important topic, is there a standard, like, food that all the grounds have, or does it depend, like, each ground has their own specialty?
Yeah, there are a few grounds that have got their own specialty. So as part of the club features that I do, there's four league tables. We call them the Fab Four. So on every club, you get the cheapest pint of cider, the cheapest
Brilliant.
beer, cup of tea, obviously, and burger and chips. So that's the one that always causes a lot of controversy because that's the one that people go. Essentially, if you're going to the game, you're gonna likely get a pint and burger and chips.
Okay.
Um, the standout club for me, I would say that as I've covered so far, is a club in London called Fisher FC. And
Fisher, okay.
Fisher, yeah. So they're based in Bermondsey, close to Millwall. So they're quite close with Millwall as well. They've got like ties to them, so they help them in the community. But they do. They call it the Sharpie Burger. If you want to have a look at a burger in non-league football, have a look at that one. Um, yeah, there's some amazing food out there. Top of my head, that's the one that comes into my mind. I don't know if it's just because I'm hungry, but um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
the Sharpies, yeah, top. That's brilliant. So you guys yeah, there's more than just the results on the pitch, right? There's that
oh
whole
yeah,
experience and then your affordability in that. And then I have a question too, because you mentioned again now having a pint around the pitch. I thought there was a rule in the UK where you couldn't have an alcoholic drink in view of the field. What's the loophole, or what allows for you to have, that cheeky pint right on the side of the pitch?
yeah. So essentially, it is a league thing. The non-league football that the website covers, that rule doesn't apply. So you can that in a sense it is free reign. You can drink in the stand. You can go and drink around the pitch in the bar in view of the pitch as well. If it's raining, you want to stay in the warm. Um, yeah. So for essentially 95% of the clubs that we cover, yeah, it doesn't apply. So yeah, you can still enjoy your pint at the side of the pitch, which is for some a big thing. For others, obviously,
Yeah,
it's
a
not. But
central part of that
yeah,
ritual, right? We talk again about that experience and that, yeah, and that's what they grew up with and was used to. So
yeah,
brilliant. Okay, so there you go. If you know that, if you maybe anybody visiting who didn't know, brilliant, Christian. This is awesome, man. I'm really excited because I'm obviously coming to the UK in like a week or so and trying to squeeze in as much football as I can. And I know you sent me some recommendations for clubs, and I'm just hoping that the schedules work out. Might see you down at Gillingham right when the Vale come.
yeah.
If I can manage a ticket for that, that'd be awesome to
That'd be
to
cool.
to link up for that. But the way that the way that we like to end all of these episodes with our guests is by completing a sentence or answering a question, however you want to pose it. Is could you finish the sentence because football?
It means everything because football means everything. I think is why I've got so passionate about what I'm doing now. Yeah, because of football, I've met friends. Because football, I've gone and experienced amazing things with family. All of my family went to Wembley um, twice. We won't mention the first one because they're still winning Premier League titles and we're not. Um, but yeah, because football, I think it is a massive part of my life, and it's a massive part of a lot of people that I speak to lives. I think if everyone could be as passionate and enjoy something as much as they do football in everyday life, then you'd be happy. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Brilliant, man. Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that, and I feel like you kind of were giving that answer throughout the whole conversation here of kind of the meeting, particularly how non-league seems to, for many people and increasingly more people, achieve that better than some of the larger football league clubs. But yeah, brilliant, man. Appreciate it. We're going to, of course, link the website, the Instagram, and the link so we can buy the Parks to Pitches magazine on eBay. And you guys are shipping internationally, right? I saw you had some international orders.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to purchase internationally, just message the page and I'll sort that out. Yeah, we've shipped to Germany and to America. So yeah, you can't buy via eBay, but just drop me a message and we can sort it out.
Okay, cool. So yeah, arrange that international shipping separately there. But awesome. Well, this is great, Christian. And yeah, I'm like, literally, you're talking about the guy who started a club and all of this thing. That's like, I'm like, how can I get that UK residency and come just for the football
Jump on
for a
board.
while? Is the gear spinning in my head right now? But brilliant, man. And thanks for sharing your passion, not only with us and our audience, but through the work that you're doing with the magazine and the website. And I know that, of being a fellow football nut and very passionate, what it does mean. So we appreciate it and keep it up. And we'll look forward to watching the journey.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, everyone watching and listening, thank you guys so much for riding with us on another episode of Because Football. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.